Hey guys, tonight we journey back tens of thousands of years to a world coated in snow and silence. You're blinking awake on the edge of an ancient steppe, your breath fogging up in the air like tiny clouds. The wind bites sharp and lacy, dragging itself over endless white hills. Beneath you is frozen ground. But you're not cold, not really. That's because your body is wrapped in layers of thick, shaggy fur, warmer than the puffiest modern parka. You rise slowly, groggy, hungry, and a little annoyed. You slept next to the herd last night, bodies pressed together for warmth. But now they've already started moving. South again. They always do this. You always hate it. Migration? Bah! Who needs it? You take one heavy step through the crusty snow, then another your giant front horn, parting the icy wind like a snowplow. You grunt your breath rattling. It's not that you can't walk hundreds of miles. It's just, you'd really prefer not to. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and the time where you're watching. I'd love to know who else is wandering the Ice Age with us tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You watch the distant line of your herd growing smaller in the white distance. They'll follow the grasses, always looking for more. But you have a different plan. You're not like the others, not entirely. You're stubborn, sure, but also smart in your own lumbering way. You turn, heading slightly west toward the valley floor. A narrow path winds down, past some exposed rock slick with frost. This trail isn't traveled often. Maybe that's why you're curious. Maybe that's why you spot the steam rising faint and thin from behind a jagged outcrop. You clamber down your massive feet, crunching into icy gravel. And there it is, a pool not quite hot, not quite freezing, just warm enough to melt the edges of the snowpack. A true Ice Age miracle. A mud bath. Steam rolls up from the center and something ancient in your gut says, yes, this. Stay here forever. You grunt and lower yourself slowly, delicately, well, as delicately as a woolly rhino can into the soft warm muck. The chill vanishes. Your muscles ease. The constant ache in your shoulder, the one from crashing into that tree trunk last winter, melts away. Here, you're not marching. You're not starving. You're not looking over your shoulder for saber-toothed cats or listening for the whistle of mammoth feet ahead. You're just cozy. Mainstream historians would tell you woolly rhinos were committed migrators, following the mammoth herds and seasonal grasses like clockwork. And sure, most of them did. But fringe theorists argue some individuals, outliers like you, broke the mold, chose solitude, stayed put, became regional legends. And really, why wouldn't you stay? This spa comes with all natural mineral content and excellent snow views. A few crows flap overhead. Their dark wings slice the sky. One lands on a nearby boulder and eyes you skeptically. Crows always seem to judge. Still, you settle deeper into the mud, sighing like a boulder, letting out its last breath. The air is quiet. For a moment, it's almost too quiet. You remember hearing old matriarchs muttering about deep stillness meaning predators were near. You glance around, half wary, but all you see is drifting snow steam curling from the bath and a few scraggly trees that look like frozen broccoli. No danger, just peace. You start to nod off because yes, even prehistoric giants need naps. But a sound jerks you back upright. A howl, low and strange, from far off. Not the bark of a wolf, not the scream of a big cat. This one is almost musical. You blink, it stops. Historians still argue whether early humans sang to each other across long distances, calling out with rising tones that echoed across the steppes. Some say it was communication. Others say it was ritual. Either way, you've just heard something not of your kind. And while you're warm and grounded now, something small and prickly stirs at the base of your thick, woolly neck. Instinct, the old survival voice. You snort, roll halfway over in the mud and scratch at your side with a clumsy back hoof. Somewhere out there, your herd is plodding south, snorting and munching their way through the snow. They're predictable like sunrises. But you're something else. You like warm, goo, lazy mornings and not being eaten. A simple creature with very clear priorities. Still, you know one truth about the Ice Age: peace doesn't last. For now, you wallow. But soon, you'll have to face things even worse than long walks. And trust me, they have thumbs. You blink mud from your lashes, ears, twitching as a chill creeps in under your thick, shaggy armor. Not that you're underdressed. Far from it. You are, after all, a walking prehistoric blanket. Every inch of you is wrapped in wiry fur, coarse and dense. Brown, black, even rusty red if the sunlight hits just right. Not that there's much sun around here. That fur isn't just a fashion choice. It's survival gear. The winds out here come straight from the glaciers, slicing across the plains like icy razors. If you were bald, you'd be a woolly popsicle in 10 minutes flat. Luckily, you're also packing a literal ton of body mass, and a skin layer so thick it laughs at frostbite. You rise from your muddy throne, with a slop and a squelch a walking mud sculpture. You shake and globs of cold gray sludge arc through the air and splatter onto rocks and startle birds. A solo spa day well spent. Your legs are stumpy, strong as tree trunks, and end in three-toed feet, perfect for trudging across frozen steps. Not so great for climbing anything steeper than a molehill. You glance up at the icy slope you came down earlier. Yeah? Maybe you'll stay a while longer. Your horn catches the light long and curved like a scythe. That's your pride and your problem. You use it for digging through snow, defending your personal bubble, and occasionally fencing with mammoth calves, who will not stop bragging about their tusks. This horn, made of keratin like your modern rhino cousin's, curves slightly forward, giving you that signature prehistoric battering ram look. It's not the kind of thing you want to stub on a tree, which, let's be honest, you've done before, twice, in 1 week. Back when you were a calf, the adults told tales of the older rhinos, huge, slow-wise, or so they claimed. The kind who roamed from the Pyrenees to the Urals, knowing every glacier path by smell. But you've always suspected they were mostly making it up as they went. A fun, fringe theory some paleontologists toy with suggests that woolly rhinos had seasonal color shifts in their fur, lighter in winter, darker in summer. Like nature's own wardrobe change. There's no hard evidence, just tantalizing pigment traces. But wouldn't that be nice? Snow camo for winter, dust tones for summer. Anyway, back to the cold. The wind kicks up again, and snow flurries spin past like lazy bees. You huff low and slow, then press your snout to the ground. Beneath the frozen topsoil, you can still catch the sweet scent of sedges, those long, stringy grasses you love to munch. You dig carefully with your horn, scraping away crusted snow and frozen moss. The first bite is always crunchy, like prehistoric salad. Somewhere in the distance, a herd of musk oxen trudge by. They glance your way with their permanent grumpy expressions, then continue waddling southward like a slow-motion parade. You snort in response. Respect the hustle, but no thanks. You wander toward a flat ridge where snow has blown clear, revealing bare earth and old tracks. Some are yours, some belong to reindeer, and a few definitely not hooves. You pause sniffing. That familiar not quite right smell again. Two-legged, humans. You don't understand what they are, not exactly. But you notice they walk funny smell like smoke and have no fur to speak of. And yet somehow they survive the same blizzards that make wolves cry. Suspicious. Historians still argue whether early humans saw the woolly rhino as a threat, a prize, or just a very large, inconvenient wall in their way. But cave paintings across Europe suggest one thing clearly: they noticed you. A lot. Some of the art even shows your horn exaggerated twice as big, curved like a saber. Others show you surrounded by humans with spears. Charming. Nothing like being immortalized in red ochre as the giant we tried to poke. You trudge past the tracks, staying alert. Not afraid, but not careless either. You're not built for sprinting and you know it. Your charge is terrifying until you hit something. Then it's mostly just awkward. Like trying to bulldoze a tree stump and losing. Nearby, a creaking sound makes your ears flick. Not wind, not birds. You scan the ridgeline and spotted something small, low to the ground, moving in short bursts. A wolverine, probably looking for scraps. You grunt at it. It grunts back. Respect. You keep moving, letting the warmth of movement replace the comfort of the mud bath. Your muscles stretch beneath your thick hide, each step sending steam puffing from your nostrils. There's comfort in your body's rhythm, in the knowledge that you're built like a snowplow wired for endurance. Other animals panic. You just trudge. It's what you do best. And yet, you feel it. A shift. In the wind, in the quiet. The snow has a strange edge today. The air somehow thinner. You can't name it, but you know the world is changing. More humans, fewer quiet spots, less grass. And the mud baths, fewer of those too. But you don't worry, not yet. Because today, your fur still holds the warmth, your horn still slices the frost, and your giant grumpy body still keeps moving. You plod forward your wide, flat feet, pressing into the snowy earth with a muffled crunch. Beneath you lies the ancient ground of what humans will one day call the Mammoth Steppe, a vast frozen meadow, stretching from Western Europe all the way across Siberia. It's not as bleak as it sounds. In fact, it's kind of your jam. Wide open spaces, no trees to bump your horn into, endless buffet of grasses, and nobody expects you to make small talk. Back in your younger days, you wandered this land with your siblings, 3 woolly rhino calves, each clumsier than the last. You'd nudge each other with your stumpy horns, playfully chase after snowy hares you'd never catch, and try and fail to sneak up on flocks of ptarmigans. But now you move alone. Solitude suits you. Most woolly rhinos were solo travelers, forming only brief, awkward alliances during mating season. A kind of annual speed dating session with a lot of snorting. And yes, a little horn jousting for good measure. Still, you remember the comfort of a herd's warmth. The way your mother used to block the wind with her bulk, while you napped in her shadow. Her horn was chipped from years of scraping through permafrost. You thought it looked like a battle trophy. Now your own horn is well worn, scuffed from winters spent breaking ice for food, scarred from fending off wolves who thought you'd make a good snack. Jokes on them. Your tail may look like a frozen broom, but your swings got accuracy. You pause as the terrain dips into a low, fog-covered hollow. A faint metallic tang drifts through the air, the kind that makes your instincts bristle. You sniff again. There it is. Fire. Somewhere nearby the humans are burning something. Maybe wood, maybe mammoth dung. It's not like they've got a lot of options out here. You don't see them, but you feel their presence. It's like static in your bones. And here's the twist, you've been watching them too. Not just this season, for years. You've seen how they move with strange patterns, circling planning. How they leave behind piles of bones stacked like weird little art projects. Once you watch them run a group of bison into a ravine, just to make the kill easier. That took coordination. Clever. Slightly unsettling. Mainstream historians say early humans in the Upper Paleolithic were still just figuring things out, learning fire tools, even language. But here's the wildcard fringe researchers believe. Some clans had deep ecological knowledge, passing down migration patterns, plant medicines, and even animal mimicry. Imagine a human pretending to be a rhino. Creepy. You hear a distant crack like a spear shaft, snapping and flinch. Not fear, just annoyance. You turn and angle your horn downward, just in case. You aren't aggressive by default, but you are 2 tons of muscle and prehistoric mood swings. Let's just say you're not the type to back away slowly. And yet, you don't charge. Not this time. You wait still as stone until the wind shifts again and the fire scent fades. You move on. The sun, a pale disk, barely visible through clouds, begins its slow, half-hearted descent. You know this light. It means you've got a few hours before the frost hardens, before your footsteps turn to echoes. In the far distance, you hear a pack of wolves yipping high-pitched excited. Maybe they found a carcass. Or maybe they're feeling lucky. Either way, you don't change your course. They won't bother you unless they're desperate. And if they are, well, your horns not just for show. You trudge into the hollow past half-buried rocks and the exposed ribs of some unfortunate creature. Maybe a horse, maybe a bison. Hard to say. The snow blurs the details and you're not in the mood to investigate. You find a soft patch of moss, press your body into the earth and settle with a deep grunt. The whir muffles around you. Snow begins to fall again, light but steady. 1,000 tiny feathers landing on your thick coat. You shift, making a divot in the earth and roll onto your side for a proper lie-down. Steam curls up from your nostrils. You blink slowly, content. Your thoughts wander not in words but in memories and scents. The time you startled the lynx and it hissed like a broken kettle. The warm days of early spring when meltwater dripped from every ledge. The buzz of insects in midsummer rare but oddly comforting. Historians still argue whether woolly rhinos had any vocal communication snorts, bellows, perhaps low rumbles like elephants. You've never heard another of your kind speak in more than grunts and huffs. But sometimes on cold nights you hum. Just a low rumbling vibration in your chest. You don't know why. Maybe you're trying to remember something. Or call something back. A soft sound catches your ear. Not wind, not wolf. A rhythmic crunch of footsteps, light but purposeful. You freeze. From the brush, a figure emerges, 2-legged, cloaked in furs, face streaked with ash. Human, small, alone. You stay still, breathing slow. They don't approach, just watch. Eyes wide, no weapon raised. For a moment, you lock gazes. You don't understand each other, but something flickers. Recognition, respect, or just mutual exhaustion from living in a world that never warms. Then the human backs away, vanishing into the mist. You blink, and just like that, you're alone again. You shift exhale and let the snow pile gently on your back. Tomorrow you'll move on, but not far. Mud season's coming, and you're not missing it. The snow melts slowly, almost shyly, as the frost seeps out of the ground, and the mammoth steppe begins to awaken. You stir under a fine coat of frost. Stretch your limbs with the stiff grace of something built for cold, and flick your stubby tail, dislodging a sleepy beetle that somehow thought your backside made a good overnight in. You rise, muscles creaking like ancient doors, and shuffle toward a familiar scent, the sweet earthy perfume of thawing mud. Not just any mud, your mud. See, while other woolly rhinos begin drifting southward, following that inner compass that whispers, "Migration time, you stay put." Because you're a connoisseur of mud baths, not just a casual dabbler. You have favorite wallows, rankings, preferences. You've even returned to the same puddle year after year as faithfully as any bird to its nest. As you make your way to your favorite bog, you pass the ghostly outlines of mammoth trails, deep grooves from padded feet, now half filled with meltwater. They're headed south, they always are. Mainstream paleontologists believe most woolly rhinos migrated long distances with the seasons, chasing warmth food and romantic prospects. But isolated fossils found far outside those expected migration routes suggest that some rhinos like you simply didn't bother. Why would you? Your patch of steppe has everything: spring grasses, mossy hillocks, sluggish rivers with ancient fish. And the mud. Don't forget the mud. Fringe theorists like to imagine territorial woolly rhinos who had favorite grazing circuits they jealously guarded, almost like prehistoric gardeners. Could be nonsense. Could be that you just like your own stink on everything. You arrive at your prize spot, a low basin, cradled between two boulders where water collects, and the clay beneath is rich, cold, and sticky enough to glue a human's sandals right off. It's glorious. You stomp once satisfied. Then you lower yourself shoulder first into the bog. The cold mud kisses your flank and seeps through your fur in slow, luxurious waves. You roll snorting with pleasure as it coats your skin. No predators here, no rivals. Just you, your mud, and the quiet whisper of wind through early grasses. You wallow! Not just to cool off, though that's part of it, but to protect your hide. Mud shields you from biting flies and sunburn. Yes, sunburn. Even in the Ice Age, the UV can be unforgiving. Some early humans slathered themselves in animal fat, or even crocodile dung as sunscreen. You'd take mud over that any day. You pause, half submerged, as the wind changes again. No humans today. No fire scent. Just the loamy perfume of spring thaw tinged with hints of flowering moss and ancient pollen. Nearby, a shaggy musk ox ambles past, without so much as a nod. You've both seen each other before. You share the same paths, the same salt licks. But there's no socializing. You're not exactly part of the brunch crowd. Your eyes close, not in sleep, but in that half-dream state of pure contentment. You feel the earth pulse beneath you, then a sudden vibration. Faint at first, like distant drumming. You lift your head, ears twitching. It comes again, a thudding, rhythmic, unmistakable sound. Footsteps, heavy ones. You clamber out of the mud with a squelch that sounds like a boot being yanked from jam. Your legs are streaked in gray paste, and you're trailing enough goop to plant a garden. You don't care. You're watching the ridge. There, two mammoths. One adult tusks like pale lightning bolts. One juvenile awkwardly tall with two big ears. They shuffle along the ridgeline, their silhouettes softened by mist. The adult pauses, looks your way. You lock eyes. A brief nod. You don't move, neither do they. Then the young one lets out a trumpet so off-key it startles a flock of birds from the trees. The adult sighs in that weary parental way that transcends species. Historians still argue whether mammoths and woolly rhinos interacted often. Some believe they shared winter shelters and might have tolerated each other. Others think they competed fiercely, especially when food was scarce. But you've had neutral encounters like this before. Just distant acknowledgement. You go your way, they go theirs. You watch the mammoths vanish behind a hill, then turn back toward your bog. It's not the only one around, but it's yours. And in a world that's constantly shifting ice, melting rivers, moving humans creeping closer, you take comfort in anything that stays the same. You return to the wallow and lie down again, belly deep this time. You exhale a breath so warm it curls the mist in gentle spirals. Around you, the earth teems with new life. Tiny frogs leap from puddles. Insects buzz through the air like clumsy fairies. The snow is all but gone now, hiding only in the deepest shadows. A raven caws from a nearby tree stump. You ignore it. Mud between your toes, moss under your cheek, you drift into a drowsy half-sleep. You dream not of danger or migration, but of wide grasslands and sunny bogs. You dream of another rhino. You never saw her again after that last spring, but her scent still lingers in your memories. Did she migrate? Did she survive the river crossing? Did she find a better wallow? You don't know, but the mud holds you, and in its cold embrace, you feel for now safe. The wind shifts again colder this time, biting softly at your ears. You open one eye. Still safe. The trees in the distance sway gently, the grass whispers with the passing air. And the mud bath, your glorious sanctuary, is cooling faster than you'd like. You rise slowly like a beast, reluctantly leaving paradise. The chill creeps up your wet limbs, and you give a snort that startles a vole into the underbrush. The world is wide and moving again. And while you've avoided the herd life of mammoths and the caravan instincts of your fellow rhinos, you're not immune to restlessness. You trudge away from your wallow mud squishing between your toes and begin to follow a trail you've walked countless times. You have your own kind of migration, less grand, less linear, but deeply personal. A loop through your chosen territory, visiting the same thickets, the same ponds, the same rub trees where your horn has worn down. Bark into polished grooves. You pass an old elk skull half buried in the earth, now a blooming garden for fungus. It's not unusual to see bones here. The mammoth steppe is littered with the past. But you pause, nostrils flaring, examining it like a sommelier might sniff a questionable vintage. Still not your problem. What is your problem is the shifting pattern in the air. There's a new scent, a familiar one. You stiffen. It's faint, carried in threads, but unmistakable ash fat and that strange, human, musk salt smoke and wet leather. Humans. You thought you'd avoided them this season. But here they are sneaking into your story again. Like uninvited dinner guests who bring no food and eat everything. You edge toward a rise, careful to keep your steps quiet. A ridiculous ambition for something your size. But instinct is old and even giants can learn to tiptoe when necessary. Below in the valley is the source. A small fire pit recently abandoned. Coals still glow. Around it are shards of flint, a smudge of ochre on a flat rock, and most telling smears of blood across trampled grass. Someone's dinner, someone's story ended here. Humans left in a hurry. Probably heard you approaching and decided they weren't ready to become a rhino pancake. Historians still argue whether early humans hunted woolly rhinos often or only when opportunity struck. Some believe rhinos were prized for meat, hide, and horn. Others think the risk of being skewered on a 3-foot keratin spear discouraged frequent attempts. But there's evidence cave paintings from France and Spain depicting rhinos with arrows or spears in their flanks. You're not just myth to them. You're memory monster and meat source all in one. You shuffle a little closer to the fireside, nostrils wide. You smell rabbit, maybe deer, definitely something fatty cooked low, probably wrapped in bark or hide. You wrinkle your lips in distaste. Not your kind of meal. But you spot something curious, a discarded object half buried in dirt. You nudge it with your horn. It's roundish smooth. A carved stone bead painted with streaks of red. A human trinket. Fringe theorists love this part. Some claim humans and woolly rhinos shared more than predator-prey tension. They whisper about reverence, worship, relationships beyond hunting. Was this bead a charm against your wrath, or an offering, or just something dropped while someone fled screaming? You don't know, but you leave it alone. Trinkets and riddles are not your business. You wander onward, slipping between stands of birch and larch. The ground softens beneath your feet. The wind carries fewer traces of smoke. Still, you're watchful now. Humans may be small and squishy, but they're persistent. Like burrs, once they latch onto your world, they're hard to shake off. You scratch your horn against a gnarled old pine, the bark crumbling under the pressure. A soft groan echoes through the trunk like a sleepy protest. Bits of fur drift down, caught in the rough bark. You mark this tree every year. It's your signpost, your diary, your territorial Yelp review. Nearby, a group of ptarmigans explodes from the underbrush in a flurry of feathers. You don't flinch. Birds have no sense of personal space. You follow a game trail that snakes along a ridge, worn smooth by hooves, paws, and pads. The view from here opens up a wide panorama of your world hills, like sleeping giants' rivers, carving lazy paths through ancient stone, and the scattered remains of melting snow patches that glitter like spilled salt. You feel it again, that tug in your bones, the sense that something is changing. Not just the season, not just the air, something deeper, a slow shift. You've noticed it for a few winters now. The ice lasts longer. The plants bloom later. The summers, what little warmth they offer, are not quite the same. You don't know words like climate shift or glacial retreat, but your instincts scream them nonetheless. Historians still argue whether climate change or human hunting played the bigger role in your species' extinction. Maybe it was both, maybe it was neither. Maybe rhinos just got tired of being cold, lonely tanks with very few hobbies. But as you stand there, snorting softly into the wind, you feel that change in every inch of your hide. You begin your descent down the other side of the ridge, heading for a grove where the grass grows sweet and the roots are soft, a place you've always trusted. Behind you, the wind picks up. Smoke sent again, but far off. You'll keep moving for now. Your kind doesn't make maps or monuments, but you do remember. Routes etched in muscle memory, landmarks carved into your subconscious. The land is not the same, not entirely. But it hasn't forgotten you yet. And you haven't forgotten how to survive it. You trudge deeper into the forested patch, the soft crunch of frost-touched leaves underfoot, reminding you how much quieter life has become. The silence is a bit of a trick though. It's not peaceful, more like a lull in the storm before everything shifts again. You're learning that the Ice Age doesn't give out free passes. As you navigate the uneven terrain, you catch the scent of something different. Less the smoky tang of humans, more the heavy musk of another rhino, but unfamiliar. Your ears twitch alert to the rustle of leaves nearby. You're not alone. Not really. You press forward, slow and steady, nostrils flaring. The grass thins, and soon you spot her, a female, woolly rhino, smaller than you, but with a proud arch to her back, and eyes sharp as flint. She freezes when she sees you, nostrils flaring in return. Neither of you moves, measuring each other in a silent standoff. The mainstream view says, woolly rhinos were solitary creatures keeping to themselves, except during brief mating seasons. But some fossil sites suggest they may have formed loose, nomadic groups at times. It's hard to tell. Historians still argue whether these rhinos were more hermits or casual neighbors. You decide to keep your distance, acknowledging her with a slow blink, the rhino version of a polite nod. She snorts softly, then turns away, disappearing into a thick patch of moss and lichen. You watch her go, curiosity piqued, but your path pulls you in another direction. Your own territory is calling. The frozen rivers you follow like veins through the earth have started to swell with spring meltwater, making the landscape more liquid and unpredictable. Crossing these rivers is tricky. One wrong step could mean being swept away by the current. Yet, you do it navigating the slippery stones and hidden ice like the seasoned traveler you are. Sometimes as you cross, you catch glimpses of fish darting beneath the water, their scales glittering like shards of broken glass. They're fast, sleek, and impossible to catch with your bulky frame, but their presence reminds you that life here is vibrant and stubborn, pushing back against the cold. You pause at the riverbank, drinking the icy water with slow, deliberate sips. The chill spreads through you, biting but refreshing. You think about the countless winters that have come and gone, the endless cycles of freeze and thaw, and how this moment, this simple act of drinking, ties you to the endless story of survival. Nearby, a flock of snowbuntings flutters across the sky, their white feathers blending almost perfectly with the clouds. They're noisy little things, but they bring a certain lightness to the heavy air. The Friend theory fans claim woolly rhinos communicated with birds, sending signals through shared territories or warning calls. Probably nonsense, but you admit that birds do seem to pay attention to you, maybe because you're big, noisy, and sometimes a little clumsy. As you continue along the river, you come across a curious sight, a circle of stones, partially buried in the mud, with bits of charred wood at the center. A campfire, long cold. You wonder briefly about the humans who made it, what stories they told here, what dreams flickered in the firelight. You sniff the air, detecting faint traces of smoke and cooked meat. The scent is comforting and unsettling at once. You've learned to keep your distance but can't help feeling a flicker of intrigue. Humans are strange creatures, so small yet so capable of altering your world. Historians still argue how early humans affected woolly rhino populations. Were they relentless hunters or opportunistic scavengers? Did they drive rhinos toward extinction? Or were they just passengers on a journey already set by shifting climates? You don't have answers, just instincts. And instincts tell you that your world is changing faster than you can adapt. The river widens here, spilling into a broad, shallow lake, dotted with reeds and lily pads. You stop breathing deeply. The air is thick with the scent of water and life. A dragonfly buzzes past its iridescent wings, catching the sunlight like tiny stained glass windows. You watch it lazily, feeling the slow beat of your heart, the steady rhythm of survival. In this moment, you're both ancient and present, a creature caught between worlds, the past's frozen grasp, and the uncertain pull of the future. You shake your head, dislodging water and bits of mud, and start moving again. There's more to see, more to survive. Because no matter what the historians argue or the scientists debate, you are here living proof of a world that once was. And until you aren't, you'll keep walking, mud and all. The ground beneath your feet shifts once more from soft moss to the crunch of frost-hardened soil. You sense the seasons' slow turn, the subtle change in air that hints at another approaching winter. even as the sun lingers a bit longer in the sky. You've always had a complicated relationship with seasons. While others embark on long, exhausting migrations, you prefer a different strategy, staying put and adapting mud baths and all. The woolly rhino's thick, shaggy coat isn't just a fashion statement. It's a natural winter jacket insulated with dense underfur and guarded by a coarse outer layer that sheds snow and sleet. You run your snout along your side, feeling the soft undercoat. It's hard to imagine a summer without this warm armor. But historians still argue whether your kind had seasonal molting shedding parts of your fur like modern deer or musk oxen, or if you simply carried your winter coat all year round. Some fringe scientists suggest woolly rhinos may have even used mud baths to help with molting. The dried mud would peel off, carrying away loose fur, dead skin, and pesky parasites. While no direct fossil proof confirms this behavior, your stubborn affection for mud might not just be vanity, it could be hygiene. You pause beside a small cluster of birch trees, their white bark dappled with black scars, signs of ancient rub marks from previous rhinos marking their territory. You nudge a tree with your massive horn, the bark crumbling softly, and leave your own mark, a subtle message to anyone passing through. This is your land, but you're not hostile unless provoked. You trudge further to a clearing, where a frozen pond shimmers under the pale sunlight. You kneel down to drink ice, crackling faintly beneath your weight. It's a brief moment of calm until you hear a soft crack from nearby. Instinctively, you lift your head. Across the clearing, a lone, juvenile woolly mammoth stumbles into view, tangled in a thicket of frozen branches. The calf trumpets softly panic, fluttering in its eyes. You watch as its mother rushes to its side, gently disentangling the mess with her trunk. You snort softly to yourself. Mammoths, with their endless migrations and dramatic family dynamics, always seem to have more drama than you do. You prefer quiet survival mud baths over marches, solitude over social chaos. Yet you can't deny a certain respect for their resilience. The woolly mammoth, the Ice Age's true superstar, could grow tusks over 15 feet long and weigh up to 6 tons. Mammoths shape the landscape, uprooting trees and grazing grasslands in a way that created habitats for others, including you. Historians still debate how much mammoths and woolly rhinos influenced each other's survival strategies. Did their migrations open new grazing grounds for you? Or did their giant footsteps crush the plants you preferred? You take a slow breath, the cold air filling your lungs, and begin to walk again. The thud of your hooves on frozen earth is a steady rhythm, a heartbeat that connects you to this land. Suddenly, a shrill whistle cuts through the quiet, a warning call from a distant wolf pack. Your ears twitch, nostrils flare, and you glance toward the sound. Predators are a constant presence. Though your size and horn offer protection, the threat of wolves, especially the cunning pack hunters, can never be ignored. You remember that time you saw a wolf attempt to shadow you for hours, trying to find a weakness. You gave him a snort he probably won't forget and stomped a warning that echoed through the trees. Wolves' hunting habits fascinate scientists and storytellers alike. Some suggest wolves targeted the young, sick, or old woolly rhinos, while others believe rhinos were simply too formidable for them. Historians still argue whether wolves significantly impacted woolly rhino populations, or if they mainly scavenged after larger predators moved on. You decide not to linger near the wolf territory. You veer off toward a rocky outcrop, a favorite scratching post. Your horn scrapes the stone with satisfying grit, and you savor the momentary relief as the tip tingles from the abrasion. The sun starts to dip, casting long shadows over the frost-glazed grass. You feel a subtle tug in your gut, the pull of hunger, and the need to find shelter before the cold truly sets in. Mud baths, rubbed trees, frozen ponds, wary glances at mammoths and wolves. These are the chapters of your ongoing story. It's not a tale of grandeur or glory, but one of persistence and quiet dignity. As you settle into a shallow depression near a cluster of hardy shrubs, you remind yourself you might not be the flashiest creature of the Ice Age, but you're a survivor, and sometimes that's more than enough. Word count 1 Arrow 68. Awaiting continue. ChatGPT Jernoi. Section Horror. You wake to the soft glow of dawn, a pale orange light brushing across the sky. Like a lazy artist with nowhere to be. Frost clings to your shaggy coat, tiny crystals twinkling before melting into dew. You rise with a groan, bones, stiff joints clicking like old wooden tools. Not that you're ancient, just seasoned. Veteran of 100 cold mornings and twice as many awkward naps in half-frozen mud. Stretching out your front legs, you dig your horn into the soft earth, carving little crescent-shaped ruts. It's more than just a warm-up, it's instinct habit, and maybe just a touch of boredom. You set off again. Your hooves find purchase in familiar places, stone ridges that rise like sleeping giants, and little dips in the earth that collect puddles after the thaw. You're moving toward one of your favorite grazing spots, a low valley carved by an ancient glacier, where moss and grass grow even when snow lingers elsewhere. Mainstream paleontology tells us woolly rhinos weren't just aimless roamers. They followed specific routes, lowland valleys, glacier-fed plains, guided by memory and the scent of old trails. And sure, you've never read a map, but your brain holds a detailed atlas built on smell taste and that one time you tripped on a half-frozen beaver dam. You remember. As you reach the edge of the valley, a sharp scent hits your nostrils smoke. Faint but unmistakable. You freeze, ears twitching. Humans. You move carefully to the edge of a slope and peer down. Below, a small band of humans tends a fire. They're wrapped in thick animal hides, their cheeks red from the cold. A child tosses twigs into the flames, laughing while an elder stirs a pot hung over the fire. You can smell cooked meat, maybe mammoth, maybe bison. Your stomach growls, but not out of hunger, out of weariness. You've never had a pleasant run-in with humans. Their eyes gleam with a curiosity that feels more like calculation. Still, you're also strangely drawn to them. The way they alter the land with smoke and bone tools, how their campfires keep predators away, but attract trouble of their own. Historians still argue whether humans admired woolly rhinos, hunted them out of desperation, or simply saw them as one more obstacle in their path to survival. One cave in France shows a woolly rhino etched into the stone wall. Its hump exaggerated its horn, curling like a blade. Was it art a warning, a prayer? You take a step back. The humans haven't seen you and you're not in the mood to be a story around their fire tonight. So you retreat, taking the longer way around the valley through a patch of snow-tipped ferns and lichen-covered rocks. There you stumble across something strange, a carcass. At first, it's hard to tell what it is. The shape is distorted, half buried in frost and peat. But then you catch the curve of a horn like your own, only thinner. A rhino, one of yours. She's been dead for days, maybe weeks. There are no signs of wolves, no scattered bones or claw marks, just stillness. You approach slowly, respectfully. The body is stiff but intact. You sniff around the face, the flanks, and then spot it. The hind leg is broken, likely a fall, not a fight. She died here alone. It hits you harder than expected. Not just the loss, but the reminder. You're not invincible, no one is. This is where the debates start to swell again. Some scientists claim that many woolly rhinos didn't die from hunting or climate change, but from bad luck breaking a leg, getting trapped in a bog, or falling through thin ice. The Ice Age wasn't just cold, it was tricky with landscapes changing so quickly that one misstep could be fatal. You circle the body once, then leave. No howls in the air, no vultures circling. Just silence and snow. You reach your grazing meadow just as the light brightens, and you settle into the familiar routine. Lower your head, scrape away frost with your horn, and chew through a mix of grass moss and tiny frozen flowers. It's not glamorous, but it keeps you going. A pair of Arctic foxes dart across the edge of the field, chasing each other in a game that only they understand. One stops to watch you. You meet its gaze briefly, then flick your tail. It gets the message and vanishes into the brush. You think again of the dead rhino. She might have liked this meadow. It's quiet, safe. There's a bittersweet calm that comes with survival, knowing that you've made it this far even when others haven't. It doesn't make you stronger, just luckier. And sometimes luck is enough. The wind shifts, gentle at first, then carrying a sharper bite. You lift your head chewing, slowing to a stop, and sniff the air. It's not danger you smell exactly, it's change. The Ice Age is a game of seasons, but lately those seasons feel out of sync. Snow comes late, rain comes early. Your favorite grazing spot now floods unexpectedly, and the once firm earth squelches under your weight like warm dough. And no offense to your horned ancestors, but woolly rhinos are not made for swamp life ballet. Still you adapt. That's what you've always done. You move uphill now, carefully stepping across slick stone and twisted roots. In the distance you hear the echo of cracking ice glaciers, shifting in slow, thunderous protest. These are the ancient giants that carved your world, made valleys from mountains and rivers from silence. And now they're shrinking. Historians still argue whether these changes mark the beginning of the end for your kind, or were simply part of a larger, inevitable dance between earth and sky. You pause at a small rise, the wind tugging at your fur. From here, you can see the distant silhouettes of mammoths moving like shadows on a canvas. Behind them trails a column of humans closer this time. Bows on backs, spears gripped tight. You squint. One of them wears your cousin's horn on his belt, carved into a crude blade. It's a haunting, silent trophy. Still, you don't turn away. Instead, you walk toward a patch of low shrubs that haven't yet been trampled or frozen. As you nibble, you find something strange wedged in the dirt. A round, polished stone. Clearly not natural. You roll it with your horn, revealing lines etched across its surface. Symbols maybe. Or nonsense. It's hard to say. Quirky objects like this often get dismissed by experts as unrelated to woolly rhinos. But you know what? You know. Humans leave things behind. And not just think stories. There's an old human tale, whispered in caves, drawn with charcoal and ochre of a great beast who refused to flee from the changing world, who stood stubborn in the mud while the glaciers retreated. They probably meant it as a cautionary tale. But you wear it like a badge. As the sun begins to drop again, you wander toward a familiar hollow. It's warmer here, protected from wind by thick boulders and a canopy of pine. You scrape at the ground to make a shallow bed and settle in muscles sighing with relief. You've earned this moment of peace. Still, the quiet doesn't last. From the edge of the hollow comes a low, gurgling groan. At first, you think it's a bear, but then the earth trembles slightly and a foul-smelling mist rises from a nearby fissure. You snort and back away. It's one of the many hot springs that pepper your territory, born from the earth's slow, molten anger. Mainstream historians often overlook these geothermal quirks of Ice Age terrain. But here's a fringe theory for you. Some believe woolly rhinos used hot springs not just for warmth, but to help clean parasites from their skin or ease sore joints. You're not sure about the science, but that hot steam on your aching hooves honestly feels amazing. You lower your head again, half asleep, now eyes fluttering. Around you, the steam curls into the air like lazy ghosts. The stars begin to peek through the canopy, cold bright and impossibly far away. You dream briefly of a time before the cold when your ancestors roamed open plains under warmer suns. They had no shaggy coats, just thick gray hides, and a horn built less for snow and more for show. Some scientists argue that woolly rhinos evolved from the Elasmotherium, a massive one-horned beast, so strange it's been compared to unicorns. Sounds dramatic, but you suppose every family has its black sheep. The dreams fade as a new scent jolts you awake, burnt grass. You stand quickly, ears swiveling. Fire? A small one nearby. Probably a careless ember from a human camp. It hasn't spread far yet, but the smoke stings your eyes and your instincts flare. Fire is one of the few things you truly fear. You charge downhill away from the smoke heart thudding. Not from panic, but urgency. This is your home, and the thought of it burning feels personal. By the time you reach a safe ridge, the fire has died, snuffed by snowmelt and luck. But it leaves behind scorched patches of earth, blackened tufts of grass, and a strange silence. You're tired, not just from the running, but from the years. The weight of every step feels heavier. The winters colder. The fires more frequent. You know this world is changing faster than your kind was built to keep up with. And you don't migrate. You don't chase the sun. You stand. You adapt. You take mud over motion, comfort over conquest. But tonight, for the first time, you wonder, how long can even the stubborn survive? You wake to rain. Not snow, not sleet, but actual honest rain. The kind that drips instead of clumps, warm enough to turn the ground into pudding beneath your feet. The first step you take is an awkward squelch that nearly sends you sprawling, and the second isn't much better. You're used to a frozen world. Rain feels like someone forgot to refrigerate your biome. You lumber toward higher ground, flinging mud with each massive step. The storm above is a tantrum thunder rolling wind, yanking at your fur and droplets thick enough to feel like pebbles. It takes effort not to grunt in irritation. But as you crest the ridge, blinking away the downpour, you notice something odd. The usual sheet of glacial white is now speckled with green. A lot more green. Sprigs of grass. Flowering weeds. Even a few bold little trees poking through the softened crust. It's not springtime, not technically, but the warmth is undeniable. Some of the more modern researchers call this one of the many interstitial periods, those unpredictable warm spells, during the otherwise icy Pleistocene. You just call it weird. And your body, it's unsure how to feel about it. That thick wool coat you've worn like a badge of honor is starting to itch, literally. You shuffle, rubbing your side against a lichen-covered boulder. Parasites stir, annoyed by the sudden humidity. Your fur, designed to trap heat, is suddenly trapping moisture too. It's like wearing a fleece blanket in a steam room. You wouldn't say you're melting, but you might be melting. Still, the change in vegetation means good eats. You nibble a soft fern that you haven't tasted in seasons. It's buttery and bright, almost citrusy. Not bad. You spot other animals returning to these slopes as well. Red deer, giant ground sloths, and even a few saber-toothed cats stalking from the shadows. Everyone's come to see what the thaw has left behind. And not everyone is pleased. The mammoths, those woolly showboats, are starting to grumble among themselves. They prefer the cold too. And while they're big enough to muscle through the mud, their patience for slipping and sliding is minimal. You exchange a long glance with the matriarch, both of you blinking rain from your lashes. No words needed. You're both thinking the same thing. This isn't normal. Back near the valley floor, the humans are on the move again, tracking new herds. They're more coordinated now, working in groups, shouting, less aiming, better. You watch them from a distance, ears twitching every time one raises a spear. One of them, a tall figure in a woven cape, pulls something shiny from a pouch, a stone blade with a curved horn handle. Woolly rhino horn, to be exact. There's still debate among historians about how often humans hunted your kind. Some believe you were rare targets, too big, too grumpy, too dangerous. Others argue you were prized, not just for meat and hide, but for your symbolic power. After all, you were one of the Ice Age's greatest survivors. Taking you down would be like bagging a dragon. The rain eventually softens into mist. You wander past a set of oddly shaped stones, arranged in a rough circle. You pause, sniffing them. Burnt wood bone fragments and colored dust cling to the earth around them. It's a ritual site, one of many popping up across your old stomping grounds. Whether it's burial celebration or superstition, no one's totally sure. But here's the quirky part. Tucked between two stones is a carving of you. Not just a rhino, you. Horn curved forward, ears splayed, stance mid-charge. It's etched with surprising accuracy. You snort and paw the ground. Who gave them permission? The mist settles over the land like a soft blanket. You close your eyes, letting your breathing slow. Around you, puddles ripple quietly. Your ears flick at the sound of frogs, tiny ones, chirping their approval of the rain. One dares to land on your back leg. You allow it, barely. And just as you're drifting into that half-sleep, a howl cuts through the peace. Sharp, canine, close. You're on your feet instantly, nose flaring. Wolves. You can handle wolves. You've handled them before. But this pack is larger than normal. Hungry. Bolder. You stomp the ground, your horn, swinging low in warning. One rushes from the trees too fast, and you swipe at it with a practiced jerk of your head. It yelps, retreating with a limp. But here's the thing about packs, they test you. And tonight, you're not in the mood. You charge, not out of fear, out of fury. The earth churns beneath you as you thunder through the wet underbrush. One wolf tries to flank you, but you twist and send it skidding across the mud. They scatter, howling into the night, and you stand alone in the mist once again, body heaving but victorious. That was the problem with being stubborn. You had to keep proving it. Later, as the stars push through the mist, you find a hollow where the trees arch like ribs over a clearing. You settle there, breathing slow each exhale, forming ghostly shapes in the air. You can feel the warmth of the earth beneath you. You know what that means. The ice is leaving, slowly but certainly. Your kind has seen glaciers come and go. But this feels final. Some say it wasn't the climate that ended you. It was the pressure of too many changes at once. Warmer weather, wetter ground, more humans, smarter wolves, and those frustrating little frogs that never shut up. But you don't think about extinction. Not tonight. Tonight you think about the mud. The honest, soothing, clingy mud. You press your side against the damp soil, close your eyes, and let the land whisper whatever it needs to say. Morning arrives with birdsong you don't recognize. Not the hoarse caws of distant carrion birds or the eerie whistles of wind through cracks, but a chorus. Bright, fast, annoyingly cheerful notes. You lift your massive head from the muddy hollow, blinking at the golden light leaking through the trees. That soft, radiant warmth. That sunlight, and it feels different now. More generous, less filtered through layers of atmospheric ice. You shift your weight, peeling yourself from the damp ground with a low grunt. Your joints creak. There's a new sluggishness in your muscles, a heaviness. Not from sleep, but from the world shifting beneath you in ways you can't quite name. You lumber toward the lowlands and find a surprise, a pond, where there used to be a frozen basin. Its surface glitters. You pause to drink, snorting at your reflection. Mud-crusted, a bit patchy. And yes, you're developing a sort of lopsided look these days. But you've always had personality. Around the pond, green things are getting bold. Reeds sway in the breeze. Small insects zip past your nose. You swat at one with your ear. It might have been a mosquito, or it might have been the devil incarnate. You're not really in the mood to identify flying annoyances. The forest around you is thickening. This used to be tundra, but now the saplings are staking claims like overambitious real estate developers. Birch, willow, even the occasional pine, all nudging in, where there was once nothing but ice and wind. It's like watching your childhood home slowly turn into a trendy cafe district. Some scientists refer to this era as the tail end of the last glacial maximum, roughly 20,000 years ago. But timelines are messy and climates don't follow schedules. What matters is this: you're adapting, or at least trying to. You trail a herd of steppe bison down a gentler slope. They seem uncertain too, sniffing at the mossy ground, their shaggy coats shedding in clumps. One of them lets out a half-hearted snort, which you return with a glare. You're all figuring this out together begrudgingly. But let's talk about a different problem: your horn. Yeah, that horn, the thick curved battering ram above your snout. In cooler, drier climates, it was your greatest weapon and your best tool. But now, with all this humidity, it's starting to warp slightly. Not enough to lose its shape, but just enough to make scratching tree bark awkward. You tilt your head one way, then the other. Nope. Still weird. Historians still argue whether the horn was used more for defense mating rituals or even snow clearing. But right now, you use it to nudge aside a soggy log, revealing a cluster of mushrooms. You sniff them, debate whether they're edible, and wisely decide not to trip on whatever trip those fungi might offer. As you forage, you spot a family of humans across the stream, 3 adults and a child. They're not wearing furs anymore, not completely. Bits of animal hide are still there but mixed with plant fibers, weavings, even crude beads. They've started painting their faces. One of them has smeared ochre on their chest in a spiral. Maybe for luck, maybe for intimidation. It's hard to tell with humans. They see you too. And here's the thing, they don't run. Instead, they kneel. One raises a hand, not in fear, but in reverence. You blink slowly, unsure how to process this. Are you a threat or a symbol? A meal or a myth? It's not the first time. Cave art across Europe, from France to Siberia, features creatures like you with careful, loving detail. You were more than an animal. You were part of a story, a legend. Still, legends don't eat themselves to sleep, so you move on, tearing up a clump of flowering roots. They're sweet, unexpectedly sweet, like carrots kissed by sunlight. You munch, half expecting them to taste like betrayal, but nope, delicious. Further south, the hills shimmer with life. Butterflies hover above thistles. A fox dashes from underbrush tail like a streak of fire. And in the distance, something huge. You pause mid-chew. That is a forest. Not a copse, not a glade. A full-blown, tree-thick, leaf-choked sound-swallowing forest. And it's growing where your favorite grazing flats used to stretch. You approach cautiously, hooves sinking into spongy soil. The temperature drops a few degrees under the canopy. The light dims. Your breath slows. It smells like wet bark, like sap and mulch and mystery. A bird screeches somewhere above, flapping away from its perch. You're not used to this. You duck your head to pass beneath low branches. Your horn scrapes against bark with a sound that makes your molars ache. In this dense maze of trees, your size is less of an asset. You're loud, clumsy, and frequently stuck between trunks too close together. But here's a quirky detail you try anyway. You try because food still grows here. Moist moss, low ferns, edible bark. You try because the world outside is getting stranger, and this feels like a place to hide from it for a little while. Later, after you found a quiet glade in the forest's belly, you lie down and breathe in the earthy smell. The air feels older here. Time moves slower. Somewhere nearby, a stream trickles over stones. You dream of the tundra, not the one you left, but the one from long ago. Flat, white, reliable. You dream of the cold and the crunch of ice beneath your feet, of wind that burned and stars that blinked like warning beacons. But then the forest rustles. A new sound. Footsteps soft rhythmic, not human, not wolf. You rise slowly, eyes scanning, and stepping through the underbrush framed by shafts of light. Another woolly rhino. She's young, nervous. Her horn is shorter, her fur less matted. She watches you for a long moment, then ambles forward. You don't move, not right away, because somehow, against the odds, you're not alone. You've spent most of your life tromping through wind-whipped tundra and slogging across marshes thick with ancient muck. But this strange forest, silence shared with another of your kind, it's oddly soothing. Even as the world around you unravels in slow motion, the younger woolly rhino blinks at you, cautious but curious. She circles a bit, flaring her nostrils. Her movements are lighter, more fluid than yours, almost graceful, like she hasn't yet carried the weight of a changing planet on her back. She bumps a tree trunk with her horn, playfully testing its give. It creaks, but doesn't fall. You respond with a gentle grunt. Not exactly romantic poetry, but in woolly rhino terms, that's practically Shakespeare. She flicks an ear and grunts back, and I acknowledge your existence sort of noise. High praise. Together you roam the forest edge for the next few days. And while you don't walk shoulder to shoulder, you stay close enough to hear each other breathe. Close enough to feel less extinct. That's the word no one wants to say aloud. Not yet, but it lingers in the shadows. The herds have thinned. The weather's gone rogue. And food, well, the buffet's turning unpredictable. Still, there are small moments that keep you going. Like discovering a wallow full of thick brown mud, so perfect it practically sinks to your soul. You lurch into it, belly flopping with a squelch loud enough to scare a squirrel halfway into the next epoch. The younger rhino watches, unsure whether this is normal adult behavior or a sign of cognitive decline. Eventually, she joins you. Your combined weight turns the mud into soup, and the both of you emerge, dripping and glorious like prehistoric gods of messiness. Later, you take her to your favorite scratching tree. It's bent now, possibly from your past efforts, but the bark still gives under pressure and it smells just right. She tries it and lets out a low, contented snort. That's what bonding looks like for your species' mutual exfoliation. But while you're getting comfortable, the rest of the planet is not. Rain comes more often now. Not the soft drizzle kind, but proper sky tantrums. Thunder that makes the forest shudder, and flashes of lightning that set whole patches of underbrush steaming. You find a fallen tree during one of the storms, and shelter beneath it with your new companion. Her side presses gently against yours, warm and solid. It's not love exactly. It's survival. And that counts. Historians still argue whether woolly rhinos traveled in small familial groups or stuck mostly to solitude. Judging by your current arrangement, it seems like companionship is at least optional, especially when the alternative is going it alone in a forest that hisses and crackles with unfamiliar life. And oh, the unfamiliar is everywhere. One day you spot a new creature, a giant bird with stubby wings and a hooked beak. It waddles through the clearing like it owns the place. You squint. It's not dangerous, just deeply odd. You blink slowly, it blinks back. A mutual agreement is formed. We don't understand each other, and that's fine. Then there are the insects. Remember when bugs were seasonal annoyances, now they're permanent residents. Cloud-like swarms of midges biting flies that zero in on your eyes, and one particularly rude beetle that flies directly into your nostril. You sneeze it out with the force of a geyser. Your companion doesn't even flinch. She's learning. And yet, beneath all this bizarre change, one truth holds firm: you're still here. For now. Your days settle into a strange rhythm. You wake, you graze, you wallow, you explore a little farther each time, sniffing out edible shrubs and trying to avoid the expanding human settlements. They're getting creative crafting tools that gleam in sunlight, using fire not just for warmth but for clearing land. Sometimes you hear them drumming at night, and once you catch the scent of cooked meat that stirs something primal in your gut. But the humans no longer seem content with watching. You spot them more often peering from behind trees, whispering to each other. One group leaves an offering berries arranged in a circle with bones laid neatly beside it. It's unclear whether this is a gesture of peace or just their version of abstract art. A few days later, you find tracks. Deep organized, too frequent. Spears have started to grow sharper, lighter, more accurate. That reverence you saw earlier, it's still there, but it's laced with ambition now. You, the mighty woolly rhino, are not just a symbol anymore. You are a resource. Still, you push deeper into the forest. You find a fallen log teeming with ants and crush it underfoot just because. You discover a sun-dappled ridge that overlooks a valley swathed in golden mist. You and the young rhino, she's still unnamed because names are a human thing, spend hours just standing there, watching the wind curl through the grass. It's not all doom and gloom, not yet. In one golden afternoon, you chase a rabbit for no good reason. It darts between your legs, squeaking in protest, while you lumber behind it like a boulder with dreams. Your companion snorts in disbelief and then joins the chase. 2 tons of shaggy prehistoric muscle. Chasing a rabbit the size of a loaf of bread, it's ridiculous. And delightful. Quirky detail of the day. A prehistoric frog decides your back leg is an excellent place to sing from. You tolerate it for 3 entire minutes before swinging your tail and sending it flying into a puddle. You're not a concert hall, yet even in the laughter something hangs in the air. You notice your companion coughs more often now. She slows down between meals. There's less spring in her step. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's the mud. But deep down, you feel the shift. Climate data from this period suggests rising temperatures and habitat loss rapidly affected large herbivores. One by one, familiar faces vanish from the ecosystem. The saiga antelope, the cave bear, the massive ground sloth. Some adapted, others didn't. You rest beside your companion that evening beneath a crooked spruce. The stars flicker overhead, fainter now, thanks to cloud cover but still there. You can't name them. You don't need to. You just watch, and somewhere in your ancient lumbering heart, you wonder, is this the end? Or just the next page? You wake before the sun, ears twitching in the hush that only comes just before dawn. That stillness isn't peaceful. It's heavy, suspicious, like the forest is holding its breath. Your companion shifts beside you, her breathing shallow, her side rising and falling too quickly. Something's not right. The air is warmer than it should be. Sticky. And there's a new scent, sharp and metallic, curling around the moss and mud like it doesn't belong. You stand slowly, hooves crunching on damp leaves. You nudge the younger rhino gently with your horn. She stirs, opens her eyes, but doesn't move right away. Her energy's been fading for days. Still she rises. Because that's what woolly rhinos do. Until they don't. You lead her down a slope, where you remember a spring-fed pond, a place where the mud smells like sulfur, and the grass grows in thick green carpets. You're not entirely sure it's still there. Nothing stays the same lately. But you go anyway. The landscape's changed again. The trees seem thinner. The ground is soggier, the streams running wider. A beaver dam has turned a meadow into a swamp, and you detour awkwardly around it, your hooves sloshing through ankle-deep water. At one point, a family of otters darts across your path. They pause, glance up at the towering, shaggy forms you and your friend make, and then disappear with synchronized plops into the water. You finally find the spring, or what's left of it. The water still flows, but it's clogged with reeds and shaded by moss-covered branches. The grass is there just like you remember. Your companion leans into it, pulling mouthfuls with slow, deliberate effort. You try not to notice the way her legs shake. Historians still argue whether diseases played a role in woolly rhino extinction, or if it was starvation, overhunting, or the long climate slide into unpredictability. But watching your friend now, it's clear something's taking a toll. You settle in beside her, using your body to shield her from the breeze. It's not heroic, it's instinct. And if this were a fairy tale, this is where she'd rally. She'd shake off the fatigue, let out a trumpeting snort, and the two of you would charge off into the forest, like prehistoric Bonnie and Clyde. But life doesn't work that way, especially not in the Pleistocene's closing act. Days pass. You stay close to the spring. It offers clean water and just enough food to stay upright. Sometimes she nudges you gently like she's checking if you're still real. Other times she sleeps longer than she should. You stand guard during those naps, swatting flies and glaring at rustling bushes like you're 10 feet taller than you are. And then one evening you wake up alone. Her scent is faint now, just a whisper. You search, grunting, pushing through underbrush and mud pits, checking every hollow and fallen log. But the forest has swallowed her whole. Maybe she wandered off to find a quieter place. Maybe she collapsed in a shadowed grove. You don't know. You won't ever know. What you do know is that the forest feels emptier. Like one of its songs just went silent. You return to the scratching tree. Not for grooming, just to lean on it. To feel something solid. But even the bark feels different. Wetter. Cracked in new ways. The next morning you move. You don't really want to. But something in your bones tells you not to stay. Maybe it's instinct, maybe it's grief. You head east where the trees open up, and the wind smells of dry stone and melting snow. You come across a small herd of animals you don't recognize. They're horned, shaggy, and twitchy. Not rhinos, not even close. But they don't run when you appear. One of them snorts. You snort back. It's civil enough. You stay nearby, watching from the edge of the clearing. They graze, sleep, argue over tufts of moss. You remember what it's like to be part of a group. You also remember what it costs. Eventually, you move on. One day, you stumble across the remains of an old cave bear. Its bones are bleached and tangled with lichen. A tooth rests, half buried in mud nearby. You nose it, unsure if it's a warning or just a memory. Either way, it's a sign things are disappearing. Fast. Here's the quirky bit. You pass a rock with ancient carvings etched into its surface. Lines and swirls, maybe even a crude drawing of you. It's got a horn and a bulky shape. It could be a rhino. Or it could be a woolly potato. Artistic skill hasn't peaked yet. Still, someone left it. Some human thousands of years ago who thought you were worth remembering. That somehow feels like a gift. You traveled through valleys no longer frozen. Rivers that used to hide beneath ice now rush boldly across open plains. Insects hum everywhere. Plants you don't recognize bloom in neon green. The air feels warmer by the week. There's a moment standing atop a grassy ridge when you realize you can't see any other rhinos in any direction. Just wind, trees, clouds that build and break without reason. For a second, your knees tremble, but then you snort, a big, wet, muddy snort, because that's what you've always done. Keep moving, keep wallowing, keep snorting at whatever weird, oversized bird shows up next. Mainstream historical consensus suggests woolly rhinos disappeared roughly 10,000 years ago, alongside many Ice Age giants. Their extinction wasn't sudden, but staggered like a slow fade-out at the end of a song. And that's how it feels now, like a note held too long vibrating in the air. But you're still here, one foot in front of the other, until the forest gives way to grassland, until the sky turns lavender at dusk, until the wind hums your name in a language no one speaks anymore. Your hooves sink gently into softer ground as you crest another low hill, the kind that used to be buried beneath permafrost. Now it's spongy with moss and warm with spring runoff. The air feels different, warmer, yes, but also louder. Insects buzz constantly. Birds you've never seen before chatter overhead, and everything smells new. Like the earth is trying on a different perfume for the first time in thousands of years. You pause. Not because you're tired though, okay. Maybe your legs aren't what they used to be, but because something in the wind smells familiar. Not mud, not moss, not even mammoth. It's fire. Not a raging, forest-devouring blaze, but a low, smoky smudge on the horizon. You've smelled this before. Back when those weird two-legged creatures gathered near the rivers and cooked whatever they'd just caught or stolen from someone else's trap. You scan the horizon. There, just past the next ridge, smoke curls upward in a lazy spiral. Human fire. And that's when you see it. Not just the fire, but the humans around it. 4 of them. Small, hairy, dressed in what looks like squirrel pelts and bad decisions. They're huddled near a crude shelter made of branches and mammoth bones. You snort softly. Typical. They never did build anything without raiding someone else's leftovers. They haven't seen you yet. You're uphill, partly screened by scrub. One of them is chewing what might be rabbit. Another is poking the fire with a stick like it owes them money. The oldest one is drawing something on a flat stone. Probably another deeply inaccurate picture of a woolly rhino with googly eyes. Now here's the question. Do you stay hidden? Or do you make your presence known? Historians still argue whether early humans hunted the woolly rhino out of necessity opportunity or just plain poor timing. There's debate over whether they revered these creatures or simply followed them with spears until extinction solved the problem. Either way, you know what a pointed stick looks like, and you've seen how quickly that fire can grow if they want it to. Still, curiosity wins. You step forward slowly. Let them hear the crunch of brush underfoot. Let them wonder. They freeze. The child drops their food. The stick stabber goes rigid. The old one looks up from their artwork, squinting like they're not entirely sure what they're seeing. And then someone lets out a shrill, panicked shriek that's less fearsome hunter and more accidental squirrel attack. You stop moving. You lower your head slightly, not as a threat, just as a statement. Yes, it's really you. And for a moment, just one heartbeat of shared air and unspoken memory, no one moves. Then the stick stabber reaches for something behind them, probably a spear. You don't wait to find out. You turn, you run. You don't go far, just over the next ridge. But it's enough. Enough to remember that curiosity has its limits. That fire and sticks and eyes that follow you through the trees don't always mean companionship. And yet, they saw you. They will talk about you. Probably exaggerate. Maybe turn you into a monster. Or a spirit. Or just another thing that used to be. Quirky fact for the night. Some scientists believe humans made carved figurines of woolly rhinos not just for art but for rituals. Maybe even to ask forgiveness after hunting one. Can't blame them. You're a hard face to forget. The landscape keeps shifting. What used to be frozen ponds are now noisy wetlands. You watch a stork pluck something squishy from the mud and swallow it whole. Gross, but efficient. You wallow when you can. The mud isn't as cold, but it still wraps around you like a blanket. You roll onto your side, letting the last chill of spring seep into your fur. And for a while, you sleep. In your dreams, the forest is still full of rhinos. Dozens of them, hundreds. Young ones chasing frogs. Old ones snorting complaints about how the grass used to be thicker. Mothers nuzzling calves. Bulls sparring in slow motion. But when you wake, it's just you. You rise, shake off the mud, step into the new light. A deer crosses your path. Stops. Stares. Then bolts with a panic that suggests you ruined its breakfast routine. You watch it go. Then continue on your steps, slower now but steady. You pass through a narrow canyon where ancient rocks loom like teeth. A wind whistles through them low and strange, like the ghosts of mammoths humming to themselves. You find a patch of mushrooms growing in the shade. You don't eat them. You remember what happened last time. You saw colors no rhino should see. You walk on. Eventually you reach a wide clearing. The grass is thick, the soil rich. And standing there across the field is another woolly rhino. You freeze. She's young, maybe half your size. Her fur is patchy in places. One of her ears is notched. But she's real, breathing, watching you. She takes one cautious step forward. You don't charge, you don't snort, you just wait. Then you take a step too. The gap closes slowly. Neither of you quite sure what this is. A reunion. A coincidence. A final chance at not being the last. Historians speculate that small, isolated groups of woolly rhinos survived longer than once believed. Some evidence suggests they may have held out in pockets of Siberia or remote valleys long after the official extinction. Maybe this is one of those pockets. Maybe you're it. Or maybe she's just a memory that decided to manifest. But she's warm, solid, real. And for now, that's enough. You move together toward the center of the field. The grass is soft under your feet. The sky above rolls with gentle clouds. You lower your head to graze. So does she. Not a word spoken, not a sound beyond the wind. But it's the closest thing to peace you've felt in years. You wake before dawn. The mist hangs low across the field, curling around your legs like sleepy ghosts reluctant to leave the party. Nearby, the young woolly rhino, the one with the notched ear, is still asleep, her massive body rising and falling with slow, peaceful breaths. You take a moment to just exist in the quiet. No hunters, no buzzing insects, no sudden shifts in weather. Just you and her and the way the horizon starts to blush with the first light. It's easy to believe for a moment that this is how it always was. But of course it's not. The changes have accelerated. Each season is less like the last. The grasses grow in too early, the bugs never leave, and the birds. Oh, the birds don't even bother migrating anymore. They just stay squawking and gossiping in the trees like the forest owes them rent. You nudge the young rhino awake with a soft grunt. She startles slightly, then recognizes you, and stands with a sleepy snort. The two of you move together toward a small stream, one that used to freeze solid, but now bubbles along even in winter. It's warm, which is weird. It smells faintly of minerals and eggs. Nope, not dealing with that today. You drink anyway. Quirky fact-time paleontologists once found a perfectly preserved woolly rhino in the Siberian permafrost, complete with internal organs and last meals still in its belly. That's how we know you enjoyed grasses, shrubs, and the occasional lichen, which, fun fact, tastes like sour regret. And yes, we still argue about whether that preserved individual was the last of its kind or just one of many unlucky popsicle rhinos caught at the wrong time. The sun climbs slowly, and with it a soft heat spreads through your bones. You glance at your companion. She's looking at you. Not in a romantic way, let's not get weird, but with curiosity. Like she's wondering what you remember, what you've seen, whether you know where to go next. And maybe you do. You lead her north, not out of habit, but because something in your bones tells you that's where the cold still lingers. That somewhere tucked beyond the ridgelines and wind-scraped valleys, the old world still clings to life like moss on stone. As you walk, you find old paths, trails your herd once carved through the tundra, now softened by time and overgrown. You step carefully, avoiding places where the earth feels thin, like it might swallow you whole. There are sinkholes now, places where the permafrost has melted, and the ground collapses in on itself like a tired yawn. You pass a cluster of trees bent sideways, their roots exposed like they're trying to escape something underground. You don't blame them. A few hours later, you reach the edge of a frozen lake, or what used to be frozen. Now it's a white slushy mess, dotted with chunks of ice and confused ducks. You walk to the edge and watch as a fish jumps, sending ripples across the glassy surface. Your companion snorts unimpressed. You both turn away. The wind shifts and with it a smell. Not fire this time, something metallic, sharp, foreign. You both go still, and then you see it. On the far side of the lake, half buried in snow and brush, is something large, metal, shaped like a giant bug. It doesn't move, but it's clearly not natural. A relic. Modern humans might call it a research drone or a climate probe. To you, it's just another strange object left behind by creatures who never knew when to stop tinkering. You and the young one approach cautiously. It's cold to the touch, lifeless, still humming slightly like it's dreaming of satellites and spreadsheets. You snort once dismissively and turn away. She follows, and together you climb the next ridge. The world below stretches wide rolling hills of moss and rock, dotted with patches of snow and the occasional startled marmot. No other rhinos, no herds, just silence. And yet, it feels okay. Historians still argue whether the woolly rhino went extinct purely due to climate change or if humans played the final clumsy hand. Some suggest it was inevitable. Others believe a few held on quietly for generations longer than anyone expected. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's her, and maybe just maybe there are others out there, hidden in distant valleys, moving through the morning mist like fading dreams. You graze quietly. She does the same. There's a rhythm to it. Not survival, not struggle, just being. The sky above turns pale blue, cloudless and calm. A hawk circles far overhead, screeching once before disappearing beyond the ridge. You lie down. She lies down beside you. And in the warmth of that moment, you finally understand that the world will keep spinning. Whether it's full of rhinos or squirrels or humans with questionable grooming habits, it spins. And you've spun with it. You were here. You mattered, even if only for a while. The wind softens now. The light fades gently, slipping behind the mountains like a sleepy eyelid closing over the world. The air cools, not with the chill of danger, but the hush of rest. You lie there, the ground firm beneath you, the stars beginning to blink into the sky above, each one a quiet watcher, a silent witness to the long winding story of the earth. Your breathing slows. The young rhino curled beside you lets out a deep relaxed sigh. The kind that only comes when you've walked far seen much and know you are safe. The grasses sway slowly brushing against your fur in a rhythm as old as time. You let your thoughts drift back to muddy baths, to the crunch of frost underfoot, to the ridiculous shrieks of startled humans. You remember the snow, the cold that bit at your tusks, the warmth of sun on wet fur, the curious eyes of mammoth calves, the buzz of insects dancing through wildflowers. And then you remember nothing at all, just the stillness, the gentle sound of water trickling nearby, the soft weight of twilight settling over your world. You've wandered far. You've endured more than most. But now at last you rest. The night wraps around you like a velvet blanket stitched with moonlight and memory. And in the quiet hush of this final moment, you are not alone. Not forgotten, not extinct in spirit, just home.